Wrapping is one of the trickiest parts of making an oboe reed. Your goal in wrapping is to have the piece of cane be really well set and sealed. In this episode, we'll show you how to wrap a reed if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, do the opposite.
To get started, you'll need a C-clamp, strong double F nylon thread, beeswax, a 6-inch metric ruler, a mandrel, a 47mm staple, and a piece of shaped cane.
First, soak your piece of shaped cane with the bark side down for about 40 minutes in room temperature water. If you don't soak it long enough, the cane could crack while wrapping. If you soak it too long, you're letting the good sap leach out of the reed and your reed won't last as long.
Set the clamp up on a desk and tie the string securely to the clamp with a few good knots. Then wax the string, which will make it less slippery and help the reed to seal. Roll the string out to an arm's length and rub the wax along the string.
Next, put the staple on the mandrel and check that it fits snugly, with the end of the staple flush with the end of the mandrel. The staples that you buy should be ones that fit your mandrel. You'll notice that the mandrel and the staple are both an oval shape. The flat parts of the oval should be aligned.
Then put the cane on the staple with the flat part of the cane on the flat part of the staple. Measure to see how many millimeters it is from the bottom of the cork to the end of the piece of cane.
The length at which you wrap your reed is dependent on the shape of your cane and the size of your staple. Most reed makers wrap between 72 to 74 millimeters, measuring from the bottom of the cork to the end of the cane. An important consideration is that the cane needs to seal all the way up the sides. At the area where the cane meets the staple, you don't want there to be too much cane. You want it to seal with the least amount of cane possible.
If there is too much cane where the cane meets the staple, then the blades of the reed tend to slip and overlap too much. When wrapping the reed, you want to have the blades slipped ever so slightly.
Slipping the blades means that the blades of the cane are not completely flush with each other. They are very slightly overlapped. This helps them seal. To accomplish this, you should be able to see the bottom blade slightly protruding on the left side if you are right-handed. This protrusion should be almost imperceptible. If it's too much, it will end up interfering with the response and the pitch of the reed.
Here is what the reed should look like after it's wrapped. You can see how the blades are slightly slipped.
Set the cane so you can see the blades slipped. A good length to wrap your reeds is 73 millimeters. As you become a more proficient reed maker, you can experiment with the length, depending on which staples you are using and the shape of your cane.
Once the cane is set, hold it firmly in place with your left thumb on one side and your index and middle fingers on the other side. Since you've already measured it and set the overlap, you do not want the cane to move.
Now we're going to do something called the canoe method.
This is a preliminary wrapping step which will help the cane close at several different pressure points, like the process of making a canoe. To do this, wrap the thread from below the end of the staple all the way to the end of the cane while gradually tightening it until the cane closes at the sides. Then hold it in place for about 15 seconds and release it.
Closing the cane at different pressure points like this helps prevent it from cracking.
After you release the thread, remeasure your cane to be sure it is still at 73 millimeters. Now it is time for the actual wrap. Remember to keep the thread taut on both sides as you wrap. You will place the thread the width of 2 wraps below the end of the staple and wrap up to the end of the staple and gradually tighten until the cane is equally sealed on both sides.
You can see here that one side of this reed is more open than the other. If this happens, adjust the cane by pushing the side that is less open toward the side that is more open. The goal is to have both sides be equally open. Never wind your string past the end of the staple. This will squeeze the cane right at the throat of the reed and will interfere with the vibrations of the finished reed. You don't want to choke your reed.
When the thread is at the end of the staple, cross it over to start winding down. Make sure you are still holding your cane securely as you do this. Cross the thread over right in the middle of the flat part of the staple, and then cross it over to the left of what you have already wound, but to the right of the lead thread, the part which is tied to the clamp.
Continue winding until you are about halfway down. At this point, we will do the 3-point check. While still holding the reed with your left hand, take it off the mandrel and check the seal by covering the bottom of the staple with your finger and sucking on the cane part. If you feel any air leaking, unwind what you have already done and start over.
If it seems to be sealed, then look at the reed straight on to see if it's leaning. Tess, your reed is the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Whoopsie! I'll have to unwind my thread and straighten the cane. There, that's better.
Now look at the profile of the reed to see if it's leaning to one side. This one looks good. Here's what it looks like if the profile shows a lean. If it's leaning like this, it means you wrapped past the end of the staple and the thread is pulling the cane to one side. You will need to unwrap it and start over.
If you've done the 3-point check and everything is in order, then put the staple back on the mandrel and continue winding down. Once the thread is all the way to the cork, you can tie it off with 2 or 3 knots.
To tie the knots, loop the string around your fingers 2 times and insert the reed through the loops while tightening the string close to the cork. Cut the thread on both sides and you now have a blank.
Before you let the blank dry, make 5 or 6 scrapes on the corner of each blade. This will help the reed stay sealed and maintain its curved shape as it dries. Let it dry for a day, and the next day, you'll be ready for the basic scrape.
Now that's something to crow about.